everyone, my name is Rutendo Mahoa, and this is Thinking Out Loud with Ru for those who are just tuning in for the first time. And I speak about everything adulting from a psychology perspective as well as from a Christian perspective. So if this is the type of content that you are interested in, please do consider subscribing and sharing this channel with everyone so that we can spread loud and proud. So today I was just like, let's speak about imposter syndrome. And the reason is when I was doing research for this topic, I came across an article that said 2 out of 3 people, so 2/3 of people struggle with imposter syndrome. And I was like, because it is a problem that a lot of people struggle with, why do we not speak about it a lot? And personally, I've struggled with imposter syndrome consistently throughout my life, whether it is in high school thinking that, oh, I shouldn't be going to a school like this, or I shouldn't be in certain rooms, or in university thinking, how did I get into this? How did I get into this? Because I'm just an average student, I'm just an average Joe out here. How am I studying psychology? I don't know anyone in my family who has ever studied psychology. In fact, I didn't even know what psychology was in high school. How am I studying this? Or even in later on after university, when I started working and I eventually got promoted to Call Centre Supervisor, I was still asking myself, how am I a person who, after applying into clinical psychology and getting rejected, I am now supervising a call center of lay counselors? Should I not have more experience, even though I have a master's in community mental health promotion? Even after all those accomplishments, I'm still in spaces of asking and questioning my existence in certain rooms, despite having been consistently a lay counselor who's taking the most calls, because it was on record at that point in time. There is a record of how many calls each counselor takes. There is a record of how many times a counselor is invited to train other lay counselor, even after being invited a lot and after people have listened in on my calls and noted that you're a good counselor. I was still in a space of questioning my existence in a certain role, of questioning whether I should be in that role in the first place. And basically that's what imposter syndrome has been in my life. And I know in your life, it may have had different ingredients, but we all still produce the cake. We all still produce the cake of imposter syndrome. We all still ended up with this very big thing that we're struggling with and that we needed help with. And I wanted to speak about it, but before we actually get into that, let's start with the definition, shall we? So imposter syndrome is ongoing or persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved, or just feeling like your success was illegitimately gotten, right? That you got into this position because of luck, not because of anything that you did, because of luck, because purely the universe was voting for me. God was rooting for me, and it is God who got me into this position. And that may be true, but sometimes it also requires that you put in a certain amount of effort. You work together with God in order for you to get to certain rooms that you're in. And of course, yes, we can speak about favor, that sometimes people are favored in certain positions, that there is a disposition, a positive disposition that other people have towards you. And because of that, it contributes to you getting into certain positions faster. But it doesn't dismiss the fact that you needed to study, the fact that you needed to get experience in order for you to even advance within your career. It doesn't dismiss all the things that you had to do in order for you to progress. But even then, we struggle with imposter syndrome because we feel like in order for me to not feel like an imposter, I have to be perfect. So every single thing that I do, there is an expectation that I have to meet a certain standard. Or in order for me to not feel like an imposter, I have to be an expert on the subject. So if we speak about anything psychology, any theory that exists within this world, I need to know it. I need to know it like the back of my hand. And I don't even know why that is a thing that people say, because I don't think we really know the back of our hands that well. Yes, we know them, but everything about the back of your hand, not really. But anyway, that's the sort of expressions that we use, that we need to know things very well, that if I'm dreaming, I'm able to answer questions perfectly. But is that realistic? Is it really? Is it really? Not really, right? It's not. Or that everything needs to be coming naturally to me, that it needs to be just like breathing to me. But truly, psychology is ever evolving, because we're studying behavior. And because it's behavior and there's new things that we're doing in this world every single time, there's new things that we need to be learning about it. And because of that, there's new theories that are developing all the time. So can we really know everything naturally? Then what's the point of research? Because research is understanding something a little bit better. So if there is research, and if there is things that we're doing in order to learn more, then is there such a thing as achieving that natural, that us knowing something naturally, that coming to us naturally? It's unrealistic an expectation to have. And of course, we have this idea that I have to be able to do everything by myself in order for me to not feel like a imposter. I have to be the superhuman who's able to do all the different tasks by myself, of which, again, unrealistic expectations, because with the time crunch of the world, sometimes there is the expectation to say that we need to meet this deadline, and meeting that deadline by yourself, probably not going to happen. So you need to be able to rely on a team. But relying on a team and not doing it as the soloist, not doing it alone, then means that, oh, there's something in me that was incapable. I was not able to produce this thing by myself, and because I was not able to do that, then I'm the imposter. So all these different things then trick your mind into believing that you're not meant to be in that room, because in your mind you have a picture of the type of person who is deserving to be in that position, the type of person who deserves to have these good things happen to them, and you're not that person. And I do think that sometimes these things happen not just in our career, but even in our relationships too. Because I've seen sometimes, because I've worked in a position of counseling, I've spoken to people who have discredited themselves from being in romantic relationships with people that they feel were great, too good for me. This person was too good for me. And it's because we see ourselves from the eyes of the trauma that we experienced. And trauma is not just the bad things that happened to us, but the good things that we didn't get to experience. So because we didn't get to experience some of these good things, and now we're experiencing them, we feel like this shouldn't be happening to a person like me, because I come from a situation where that didn't occur. That was not a norm for me. But now, because I'm happy and smiling all the time, I don't deserve to be feeling that, because that's unnatural to me. I come from a space where I was fighting for my life. So because that's the norm, and now you're in a relationship where things are good and you're not fighting for your life, you're not fighting this person, and you're not fighting for your needs to be met, it's starting to feel unnatural. And because it feels unnatural, you start to feel undeserving of it. And because of that, that imposter syndrome kicks in. So it doesn't only occur in academics or professionally, but sometimes relationally too, like I mentioned. It can look like what I just mentioned before. And in order to understand imposter syndrome a little bit better, I thought to speak about a theory. So it's in rational emotive behavior therapy. And it is a theory that was suggested by Albert Ellis. So it's the ABC theory, right? So he basically postulated that people become unhappy and develop maybe negative ways of looking at themselves or unrealistic or faulty beliefs because of the ABC. So A is an activating experience. So there's something that happened, whether it is in their childhood, in their young adulthood age, so an activating experience that causes the beliefs, so that's B, their beliefs to change, that causes them to have a belief about themselves, that I believe I shouldn't have good things, that I believe I should be an expert in certain subject matters in order for me to be deserving, that I believe only this type of person deserves to be a supervisor, only this type of person who is outgoing, who is this, who is that, deserves to be in certain spaces and not just little old me who is introverted. So we have a picture of our mind because of the beliefs that we developed as a result of an activating experience where maybe a certain person was always the one who was selected for something and not really you. And because of that, a belief then is something that you have, that only that certain person has to get certain good things to them because of that activating experience. And of course, lastly, C is the emotional consequence. So as a result of all these different things, there is a consequence that happens because of that. That because I believe that only a certain type of person gets to be promoted, gets to advance within their careers, I'm probably not even going to apply for certain positions. I'm probably always going to feel like I am less than when I'm in certain rooms because of that experience, because of those beliefs that I have. And because of those beliefs that I have, I'm probably going to be self-sabotaging in certain relationships because I don't believe I deserve to be there. I don't believe I deserve those good things happening to me. So just to summarize, there's an activating experience, you develop certain beliefs because of that experience, and there is always a consequence of holding those beliefs that you have. And that's basically how behavior was explained. And that's basically how imposter syndrome, I'm explaining it within this. And I think in order for you to deal with it, there's also always practical steps that you can take to address imposter syndrome, because it's important to remember that when it comes to human behavior, human beliefs, everything concerning us, there's nothing that is set in cement. We're not set like cement. We're not that. We are human beings. We're constantly in a space of being and becoming. So because of that, there is things that happen to us that have been, but it can change. It can be changed. It takes effort. It takes effort, but it can be changed. So the first thing that I would like to suggest, of course, this is not an exhaustive list of the things that you can do in order to deal with imposter syndrome. I just came up with 5 because it's things that resonated with me specifically. And the first is, it's important to separate feelings from fact. So just because you feel like you are not deserving of something doesn't mean that it's true. Just because you feel stupid doesn't mean that you are stupid. Just because you feel less than doesn't mean that you are less than. Just because for the sake of having an actual example that we were working with earlier, just because at that point in time I felt undeserving of being a call center supervisor didn't make it true, because it's something that I felt, but it wasn't actually based on fact. Because the facts were, I was a high-performing counselor. I was validated by other counselors as being a great counselor, right? I was validated by the people that I spoke to a lot, that, oh, thank you so much for helping me. You were great on this call. I was able to do 1, 2, 3 because of you. People called back and were able to say how I made a difference. right? And the results were speaking for themselves. So it's important to be able to separate feelings from facts. What do the facts say? That you studied hard to be in the position that you were in, that you got a master's degree because you wanted to get more understanding of how to help people within the space of mental health, right? That's what it says about me. But what does it say about you? What are practical examples that you have that show that factually that you were working towards the goals that you were in? So you're not an imposter. You're not a person who is pretending for the sake of trying to convince something of people. You're not faking it until you make it. You actually have tangible things that you can show that, listen, because of 1, 2, 3, this is what shows that I am meant to be in this position. And then the next thing, number 2, is it's important to become aware of the conversations that you're having in your head. Because we're always having conversations in our head, and sometimes those conversations are negative. And sometimes we are putting ourselves down within those conversations. We're developing beliefs about ourselves that might not always be based on fact. We are developing an understanding of, we are trying to understand how everything fits together within this world, how our experiences are shaping us as human beings. So we're creating stories to help us understand the world. We're creating stories about ourselves in this world. And those stories are not always positive, and it's important to become aware of that. What sort of conversations are happening in your mind? Are they positive? Are they negative? Become aware of the stories that you're telling in your mind about yourself and about your situation and about where you're going. And then the next thing, number 3, is record all your accomplishments. So it's important to have something tangible. I love journaling. I actually have 2 right here, but I have a different journal for different reasons. I have journals just for me to remember all the different things that I have accomplished, all the different things that I am celebrating in my life because of the efforts that I've put in, right? And it's because sometimes we tend to forget in moments where we're struggling. For example, I mentioned applying into clinical psychology and not getting in. And because of that one thing, that one barrier that I am constantly being faced with, I can sit there and be like, oh, my life has not amounted to anything. I haven't achieved anything. And that one experience causes me to literally overlook everything else that I was able to achieve. So because of that reason, because our minds work like that, it's very important that we are able to look at our other achievements that we have, that we don't negate the fact that we've still achieved a lot even though we haven't achieved this one thing. So for me, I have a journal that I write all the different things that I am grateful for, all the different things that I achieved, so that in those moments where I'm looking at a rejection letter, I'm able to still see that, no, I'm actually great in this profession. Yes, there might be some skills that I need to work on, but it doesn't mean that I'm not meant to be in this profession. It just means that there's skills that I need to brush up on. And we can always do that, but not say that because of that, this is why you're undeserving. The next thing is, it's important to reframe negative self-talk. So like I mentioned before, sometimes we say things like, I got here because I was just lucky, because yeah, they just like me, not because I am deserving of it. But it's important to reframe that. So instead of saying it like that, it's important to have a more balanced perspective, to be able to go back and look at the different things that you worked on in order to get where you're at. So instead of saying I was just lucky, being able to say I worked hard and prepared for this. And this is how I worked hard. These are the practical things that I did in order for me to get to the place that I am in now. So it's important that you allow yourself to look at the things that you did in order to prepare yourself for the position that you're currently in. And then lastly, it's important to accept compliments. Accept compliments. And I laugh because this is something that I really struggle with. I struggle with it. And I genuinely, when someone compliments me, I'm like, let's just brush over it and just ignore it. Because I'm just like, awkward. I don't like speaking about myself like that. You're looking at me too much. I don't like that. Let's brush it off. But those moments of being complimented about something, it's moments of getting external validation for something that you probably should also know internally, that you are working hard, that you are deserving. And it's important for us to also receive that. Because in receiving that, that's also what helps us to know that the rooms that we're in, we're not there by accident. We are there because we worked hard to be in it. And because you're in that room, guess what? For a lot of people who come from underprivileged backgrounds, from minority groups, you are going to be a representation that it can be done for someone else who also looks like you, who also has a similar story to you. And you're probably going to be the reason why they are going to struggle with imposter syndrome less, because you're in that room. Because yes, representation matters. So it's important that you allow yourself to take the compliment, allow yourself to reshape how you see yourself, allow yourself to be aware of the conversations that are happening in your mind and to be able to shift them. Record your accomplishments because you are working hard and you deserve to be able to have tangible reminders of all the different efforts that you're putting in order to get to where you're at. Because at the end of the day, I always think of this as a Christian. I think about the talents that we've been given by God, all the different abilities we've been given, and being able to present before God and say that you gave me this is what I was able to do with it. You don't want to be able to say to God, you gave me this, but I didn't think I was worthy of it. So I buried this talent and I didn't do anything with it. Because he knew who he was giving that talent to, and he knew the potential that you have and what you could do with it and who you could benefit with that talent. So be the person who says that, okay, you gave me this talent. This is what I'm going to do with it. This is how I'm going to affect the world in a positive way. So that when I look at you at the end of my journey, I'm able to hear those words, good and faithful servant, good and faithful servant. You were able to multiply, you were able to produce more from what you were given. From the little you were given, you were able to build nations. So thank you so much for listening. This is Thinking Out Loud with you. Until next time, bye for now. Stay blessed.